In this episode of Getting to There, I had the pleasure to sit down with retired head football coach Andy Talley, the winningest coach in Villanova school history and the winningest coach in the CAA conference. Andy shares what winning a national championship is like while giving us a behind-the-scenes perspective that you won't hear anywhere else. As many of you probably know, Andy is the president and founder of the Andy Talley Bone Marrow Foundation, and he sheds light on how that all came about. So please sit back and enjoy the first installment of Getting to There. Thanks for being here, Coach. I appreciate it. Coach for Villanova at Villanova for 32 years. Why did you stay?
Well, I'm from Bryn Mawr, so local boy comes home after 25 years of gallivanting around the college football scene. So when there was an opportunity to come back to Villanova and also pick up the program that was dropped in 1960. So, we brought that program back and got it going again. And so it was really a labor of love for me. Local boy comes home, good deal.
So you win the championship, top of the world. How's that feel? And were there any interesting behind the scene moments that most people wouldn't know because they weren't there with you?
Well, very interesting. When you win a national championship, the feeling is indescribable. All of a sudden you realize that there's nobody else in the country that's better than the team you just put out on the field. So it's a feeling that you can almost not describe. And an interesting thing, the night we won the national championship, of course, we had a big celebration on the field with the award ceremony and so on. And then we went to the biggest press conference I've ever been to in my entire career. It lasted a good hour. And one of the questions that they asked me in the press conference was, you had a problem prior to coming to the national championship, a physical problem. And I almost didn't make the plane because I had some heart pains. And of course, having had a heart attack earlier in my career, I was concerned. And I went, oh man, Lord, please allow me to go to this game, the national championship. So I went to my cardiologist. He did all the tests for me, and I was able to get on the plane and make it. So when I get to the press conference, I kind of shared that with the people there. And I said, you know what? I had this problem, and if I would have passed away after this game, it would have been a good life. I would have achieved all that I wanted to achieve in my coaching career, which, you can't do it any better than win a national championship.
Coaching is hard is probably an understatement. Did you ever think of giving up in your career?
We had a bad run at Villanova about 3 years in a row. And at that point in time, I wondered if maybe I had kind of lost what I needed to get it done. But after assessing everything, we had a little young player coming up by the name of Brian Westbrook. We had Brian Finneran, who was a phenomenal wide receiver for us and a great quarterback. And all of a sudden, we turned it around. We went to the playoffs, and then we went undefeated and, had a great run from then on. And actually, the last 10 years of my career, that's 63 to 73, 63 years of age to 73 years of age, were the greatest 10 years of my career. So see, old people can still win.
That's awesome. So how did you get involved with Bone Marrow and the Get in the Game and the Andy Talley Bone Marrow Foundation?
A lot of people ask me that. I was driving to work one morning at about 6 o'clock, coming down Lancaster Avenue. I heard a talk show, and an oncologist came on and said, we have no donors. We only had 1 million people at that time on the donor list. That was in 1992. We now have 20 million people on the donor list. And I went, you know what? I've got 90 healthy football players. I can do something about that. And so I contacted some of the local college head coaches and said, look, let's do this bone marrow drive. And in those days, to be a donor, you had to draw blood. That was a little tough for some of the big-time football players, but now it's a simple cheek swab. So it was something that I got involved in, and once I saw the results where we were actually saving lives, I was hooked.
What are you focused on now?
Well, now, of course, that I'm retired as the head football coach, I've been running the Andy Talley Bone Marrow Foundation for a number of years. My trusty associate, Krista Ross, is the boss lady, and she runs the show from the top. I do the fundraising, and she keeps me organized. And we have a great thing going. We have 120 college football teams that work with us that do Marrow drives every year. Last year we did 18,000 people on the donor list. We've put over 100,000 people on the donor list and have over 500 transplants to our name. So we're doing great stuff, and we hope to continue to save lives as we move on.
You've coached and led many boys into men and men into great athletes. Who are the few athletes that really inspired you because of how good they were in what they were doing?
Well, probably Brian Westbrook would be the name that most people would think. And Brian was a scholar as well. So he was not only a great football player, he was a great student and very outstanding young man. I think he would be the forerunner, the guy that kind of led the way. Brian Finneran was another one. He played for the Atlanta Falcons for 10 years. He was a guy that was a great player, a great person to this day, has been tremendous in the community in Atlanta. And then John Robertson was a quarterback for us. John was a guy that won the Walter Payton Award. In fact, the other two guys won the Walter Payton Award. And the Walter Payton Award is symbolic of the greatest college football player at the FCS level. We have three of them. Nobody in the country has three. We have three at Villanova, which is considered a basketball school. When you look at Villanova, people go, oh, Jay Wright, basketball. But we also had a pretty good football tradition at Villanova as well.
That's great. The Andy Talley Bone Marrow Bash. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what goes on behind the scenes and how people can get involved?
Well, the Bash is something that we put on every year, and it's the major fundraiser for the Andy Talley Bone Marrow Foundation. We'll bring 300 or 400 people together that night. We'll have a band, it'll be dancing, there'll be great food, and we'll bring a donor and a recipient in who will meet for the first time, which is incredibly moving. So think about it. You have this little child who's 14, 13, 12 years old, and here comes their donor who saved their life, and they meet for the first time. I will tell you, there are more tears in that building than you can shake a stick at. And of course, we quickly pass the hat because that's when we're trying to get everybody to give their donations to help our foundation. So basically what we do with the Bash is celebrate life and the giving of life, and also what we do with the foundation on a yearly basis, which is save lives.
And I've been to some of your bashes, and the magic between the donor and the donee, and just the fact that that person wouldn't be there is so, words can't describe it. It is an awesome place to be part of and thing to be part of. So thanks for doing that. Coach, thanks for coming. Thank you for answering
My
our
pleasure,
questions.
Fred. Great to be here.
Thanks for watching Getting to There. Join us next time for another exciting guest.